50s. Well, and we know him. He was a womanizer, but nevertheless, he was married at the wedding to Teresa, and we still celebrate the wedding once in a year as the biggest fun fair of the world, as the most exported fun fair of the world. I only say beer out of 1 beer max, 1 liter beer max. I say roasted rooster with dumplings and white cabbage with raw white sauce and leather trousers. Oktoberfest. As we drive to Mannheim, we cross the Rhine River right here now and change the fellow state here from Rhineland-Palatinate to Baden-Württemberg. Now we get some impressions of the harbor sites and with the very impressive views and skylines of industrial buildings, of chimneys, of cranes and smoke getting out of the chimneys. As you can see here, well, that means here prosperity, wealth and employment. The harbor, the second biggest inner harbor of Germany in Mannheim, the sister town after Duisburg, with a turnover of about 9 million barrels. Lots of railway tracks that belong here to the harbor place of the freight train. Now, Ludwigshafen is also known because of her personality from politics. Now we are right here in Mannheim, the sister town of Ludwigshafen. Well, the more beautiful sister in this case. You could say 320,000 inhabitants. Well, and a city with a very amazing development from a village to a town. In 1400 years, when it was in former times a village named Mannheim, home of Manno, by fishing and with lots of trade activities on the Rhine and Neckar River. Well, and then became a town in the beginning of the 17th century with a plan in the shape of a grid, plan on a sheet of paper with blocks. Very, very special. Well, maybe the Dutch city planner inspired the Dutch city planners of New Amsterdam on a peninsula Manhattan. You know what I mean? New York, actually, Manhattan. Well, and Mannheim could be characterized with 4 characteristics, with 4 features. Well, one is industry and industrial growth, with important and big companies that are worldwide operating. Second is University of Mannheim, to the left-hand side. And that is the old palace of Mannheim from the 18th century that is basically in use by the University of Mannheim. Well, the most popular subject to study is international administration and law, especially business is here very popular. Graduation of business could apply almost everywhere. Well, Mannheim is also the city of innovations, and you wonder why what things have been invented and introduced right here in Mannheim that are worldwide now. And Mannheim is also UNESCO City of Music. Well, why? Because started in the second half of the 18th century, the Mannheim Music School has been established by Prince Elector Karl Benz. That's very innovative intendants, musicians, as well composers, and there was a circle of very talented musicians who made innovations, an orchestra with growth of sounds and voices, and some gimmicks, words, voice imitations and something. Well, the Mannheim Music School inspired a couple of composers, popular composers like Mozart and Beethoven, and then later, actually, the Mannheim Steamrollers, who got their roots in Mannheim, in this region. Well, so ladies and gentlemen, we passed the train station to the left-hand side beyond and right in one district called Glückstein district. That has been developed from the freight train station, a very huge freight train station, to a station area with offices, housing, and hotels, gastronomy. Here on the right-hand side, are the remaining freight train depots from the late 19th century, the 1870s, and that has been restored as protected monument. It's used for gastronomy and events. But right here is also the so-called one of the 8 founders institutions for startup companies in Mannheim. Industry, to your right hand side, well, you see the brand of company that you will know, well, worldwide, one of the most popular companies for land release, tractors, agriculture, John Deere. Other companies grew and became big and meaningful. That means, well, worldwide operating like Siemens, like Mercedes-Benz, ABB, formerly BBC, for example. Mannheim, the city of inventions. Well, lots of stuff has been invented. Well, not only technical things, well, but mainly also practical and delicious things. Ladies and gentlemen, a great inventor was, for example, also who made technical inventions, Mr. Siemens. Cities indispensable to get from A to B, to do some work out and to save energy and environment. Below, very passionate constructor and studied engineering in Karlsruhe. Well, later, after a couple of practices and working in different companies, he founded his company for engines, gas engines to the machines. From the beginning on, he had the vision to produce a horseless coach to replace horses. Well, and so horses were sometimes stubborn and they leave the leftovers on the ground. Therefore, he thought they could be replaced by that means. And so he brought up the first automobile, the first car in 1886 with a free crankshaft carburetor, engine, driving belt, well, all that stuff that was necessary. With a velocity of 60 kilometers per hour. It was sticky and loud. Well, and people were ready to buy it. It was very expensive at that time. Only a couple of companies, or a couple of CEOs who were fascinated bought it, but the majority not, and not the German. 2 years later, his wife thought about a marketing strategy that was necessary and made her first route in the south of Mannheim to Pforzheim, to her hometown, 100 kilometers, and took her 2 teenage sons with her. mother's now almost 82 years old, but she still remembers the time. Well, and now we pass a little town with 26,000 inhabitants. Island, see a first production plant on the right-hand side with a long chimney. And that is one of the most important production plants. That is here, Heidelberg Materials. Heidelberg Materials are the mother company for materials out of clay. That means concrete, gravel, cement, and then mortar and something like that. HeidelbergCement was not the name, and the company has been founded in the late 19th century. Now it is a very important employer in this region. They're Europe-wide operating as the third biggest producer for materials, streets for building bridges, for building houses, for building foundations, and lots of more. And that has to do with a medieval word. They call it lime because of the material. That means clay. Well, clay town, you could also say lime and clay town. And the reason is the material of the soil, the quality of the soil. That is clay and shell limestone. After a couple of meters you see the quarry where it has been exploited formerly. Look at here, well, that is the quarry that has been former times used for exploitation of the materials of shell limestone and clay. And now there's an area to go for a walk, to learn a little bit about the history of the geology. And that is also, the material is also the reason, or the soil is also the reason why witness plant wine here to your left especially, and do it since a couple of generations. Well, that is best conditions for growing wine, mineralic soil with clay and shell limestone. And so you can see growth of wine. Technique to ferment it has been brought by the Romans about 2,000 years ago. They brought it here to this region, many sides of Rhine River. Close to the Palatinate forest, a Roman wine estate has been discovered with vessels where the wine has been formerly fermented. Well, they brought us the technique, thanks to the Romans, but the wine was very sour in Roman times. Well, there was a different taste. Maybe they drank it as well like we drink apple spritz or something. Well, and according to our taste, it's not very delicious. It's sour wine, and therefore it has been changed. New grapes have been in the Middle Ages and imported from France, like Pinot Blanc and Pinot Gris. Well, but also from the south, from Italy, a couple of grapes have been from Tyrol. And the most popular is the Riesling grape. Riesling. Well, the grape with the taste and the smell remind a little bit of apricots or peaches and green apples and limes and grapefruits and something. And so we drink it here purely, either as a spritzer, very refreshing wine. Riesling, well, a big drinking glass with dots with a capacity of half a liter. Well, also very popular is apple spritzer, well, especially deeper in the forest. The restaurants apple cider and apple cider spritzer, not apple spritzer, apple cider. Well, and so you could have some impressions about the forest, leaf trees, that makes appetite for hiking when it is dry. The sun shines as well in the autumn, where you see the colored leaves. And maybe sometimes you see a burnish or a deer or something from far. Well, but you don't want to meet a boar, especially a female boar with her children. She's getting very aggressive. Well, but nevertheless, that happens not very often. And the wolf is back. We got the wolf back. Well, but he does no harm to human beings, but the sheep, therefore, that is controversial, discussed, is one of the most popular sports in Germany from the time of the industrialization on. Therefore, lots of hiking associations have been founded. While we are approaching the castle of Heidelberg, and the University of Heidelberg is the oldest in Germany, founded in 1386, with 31,000 students actually, with 160,000 inhabitants. Well, 31,000 students at the university and some private schools. It's quite a lot. That is the reason why Heidelberg is one of the youngest towns in terms of the average age in Germany. The average age is 39. I'm almost 54. I feel quite old, to be honest. To the left-hand side is an ensemble of architecture. It is the cable car station with connection to the mountain built at the beginning of the 20th century protected monument. And a special gimmick is also the cable car, the historic cable car from 1907, a route that brings people up to the peak of the mountain to do some strolls to the hotel. Well, it looks very nostalgic, although it was a very, very great innovation when it has established the late 19th century as the lower cable car. And it was an angled arm and angled with each other and move against each other and counterbalance. One moves up, the other moves down, and vice versa. Well, introduced by Swiss engineer Rhine for the slopes and the Swiss Alps. And then driven by the Howard former times and based on rack and pinion system. Well, before it has been electrified, the two trains got tanks. When it drove down, or it lost water when they drove up, and vice versa. Well, and now we approach the castle, ladies and gentlemen, hidden behind the trees. They can see it here on the right-hand side. The wow moment. Look at here. Isn't it amazing? We got great weather. I hope you're not disappointed that I present you broken buildings, but some of the most impressive size Chinese billionaire wanting to get and translocate that stone by stone is not possible. It fits into that area here, exit of the Neckar Valley, on top of the rock as well, and the rulers who have chosen that point were the Prince of the Council Palatinate, later Prince Electors, here on the height of 600 feet on the granite rock. Now to overview Heidelberg, to look out of the Neckar Valley to see the enemies approaching from far. Well, and so developed in the following 450 years to fat, big amount of buildings of different styles, Romanesque, Gothic, Renaissance, Baroque as well, until it has been destroyed in only a couple of weeks. It became a grammatical ruin. Well, that attracted many creative people making creative works, composers, plates, and tourists as well. The list is long. Goethe was one of them, our popular author, well, with Mariano Villema, who wrote about the Westminster Demon and Faust. And from Great Britain, Somerset Maugham was here in Heidelberg. While from France, Victor Hugo wrote The Miserables, Les Miserables.